appreciate being brought in here to give you guys a chance to hear from me about PACE and navigating the chaos of family therapy. Um, Let me start with just letting everybody, excuse me, know that if there's questions, let's wait until the end of my presentation, and then I will certainly be willing to take anybody's questions that they might have. Okay. Um, just to give you some background, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm based in Pasadena. I have over 40 years of experience. My professional background includes kind of a wide range of settings, working in mental health counseling agencies, community colleges, private practice, residential treatment. Um, During my 13 years in residential treatment, the last 7 of those years were living and working in Italy. And this was an international experience that has significantly has shaped my approach to family therapy and really, for me, deepened my understanding of the importance of fostering healthy family structures. I guess one of the added perks of living in Italy, it spoiled my taste for most Italian American food.
Hmm.
Regretfully, I'll never eat so well in my life again. Um, so, returning to the United States following Italy, I began working with complex developmental trauma cases like those involving foster um, and adopted youths in search of a family therapy model to better support these young people and their new families. I discovered Dr. Daniel Hughes's work. Um, Training with him led to successful outcomes, both with trauma affected youth as well as those families experiencing attachment wounds. By 2010, I became certified in dyadic developmental psychotherapy. That again is Dan Hughes's model. Sometimes just it's easier to do an acronym DDP. Um, and by 2016, I was training other professionals in the UK, in Europe, as well as in the United States in this model. In my private practice, I focus on assisting families, couples, and individuals that are facing challenges related to attachment trauma, anxiety, depression, mood disorders. I work a lot with the neurodiverse population, as well as parenting and adoption issues. I want to put in a plug here for Dyadic Developmental Psychotherapy Worldwide Institute. Um, Thousands of people have already been trained in PACE and DDP in this particular approach in Canada, US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Finland, Africa, the Netherlands, Singapore, Spain, and Italy, just to name a few out there. So it's widely recognized, this particular approach. Now, just let me give you a quick word before we launch into PACE and family therapy. What I'm sharing today is really just a snapshot of what is actually covered in practice in a 2-day PACE training. Because of time, there's certain things I've excluded a lot in regards to brain science, interpersonal neurobiology, trauma, and applying PACE to specific groups. And this is done just because we're limited in terms of time, but I'm more than happy after the presentation to deal with any of your questions, as well as any of you that are interested in exploring consultation or training, feel free to contact me. So let me say that those of you that are here, that family therapy attracts clinicians from many different backgrounds. Some of you primarily do individual work and may have dabbled a bit in family work. Others may be comfortable with couples work but less experienced with families. Some of you may not have done much family therapy since your internship or your associate years. And others of you may practice family therapy regularly and are really, designing to sharpen your skills by being here. My experience in doing family work is that it can be very challenging and for many reasons, including scheduling sheer numbers of people in the room, getting everyone to show up, strong personalities, and resistance. And the chaos really increases when the dynamics are complex and everyone brings in strong opinions and competing agendas. This includes well meaning relatives as well as professionals that I've dealt with. It's no surprise that many clinicians avoid family work for these reasons. For your benefit today, I want to simplify a methodology that I think can serve as a practical roadmap for navigating that complexity. By uh, adopting a PACE stance, and PACE stands for playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy, you'll be better able to promote intersubjectivity, empowering each family member to positively impact one another, and guiding the family towards a greater calm, equilibrium, and structure, allowing all family members to really get what they need. Theoretical foundations of PACE. PACE really grew out of Dan Hughes's dyadic developmental psychotherapy and is really grounded in John Bowlby's attachment theory. Uh, with more than 30,000 peer-reviewed articles underscoring the value of secure attachment, we can see how much healthy relationships across the lifespan, or what I call from womb to tomb, depend on healthy attachment. In family therapy, an attachment lens means approaching everybody's inner world, including their thoughts, feelings, wishes, needs, without judgment, in a way to support growth and development. And this differs, from traditional social learning approach, where behavior gets shaped through watching others, through feedback, and consequences like rewards for compliance or punishment for falling short. PACE takes a different route. The role of safety and responsiveness in attachment really comes from Bowlby's information, and Bowlby argued that attachment security grows when parents are available, sensitive, and responsive. I want you all to kind of picture a child who is riding his bike along a walkway with a parent, behind them, uh, and this child falls off a bike and scrapes his knees. When the parent comes quickly, shows concern, and comforts the child will feel safe. At its core, attachment is all about safety. Stephen Porges would agree to that as well. A contrary example is when a parent is possibly distracted on the phone, for example, and doesn't respond shortly after the child's fall, the child is more likely to become dysregulated. Edtronic's still face experiment shows that after these missteps, repair is what restores safety. So positive parenting isn't just about responsiveness, it's also making amends when things go wrong. So I want to introduce also a piece that really dovetails perfectly with attachment, and that's intersubjectivity. At the end of the day, attachment theory really keeps us grounded in one very big way, safety. And right alongside it is intersubjectivity, the shared connection between parent and child, when they're not just reacting to one another, but they're actually sharing an experience and making meaning together. This kind of heart and mind connection That's what it is. Those moments really build a relational base that helps family therapy really take hold. Primary intersubjectivity, which starts, shortly after birth here, is a back and forth connection between infant and parent as they tune into each other. In a shared exchange, both learn about themselves, and the child's sense of self develops as a parent reflects it back. Now, happening right around um, age 1, when language begins to develop in a child, secondary intersubjectivity comes into play. And there's really three uh, key elements that really underpin secondary intersubjectivity. The first is attunement. And really, in plain terms, this really means getting on the same wavelength with your child and vice versa. Matching someone's energy and emotion with your tone and body language. When that kind of level of sync is missing, this is when kids, teenagers, other family members even can dysregulate. I'll give you an example of this. When a child or teen might say, "God, I'm really angry," and we come back with sort of the um, a response of being calm, in tune with what has been said, and say, "Oh, I hear that you're really feeling anger." Well, we're not going to be connecting. We may get by with this with adults, but working with, teens and kids, you're not, and quite frankly, when they're in that anger state, they may be hijacked by their limbic system, and we can't really reason with them. So we have to meet them at their own place, their own space, and we have to be reflective in terms of their tone and their body language. So, you might say something like, "Wow, I really hear that you're angry right now. I get it." And that way, that child feels attuned, feels centered, and feels connected with. The second aspect of secondary intersubjectivity is joint attention and awareness. Like when you're both focused on the same thing and experiencing it in a similar way, that shared focus really creates a feeling like this feeling like we're in this together, which makes real understanding and influence much easier. I have an example of a young man that I had worked with several years ago. Um, and this young man, came in with a diagnosis, neurodiversity. He was having difficulties, connecting with friends. He had some identity kinds of uh, issues that were going on with him. And um, I could sense right from the very beginning, if I didn't allow myself to reach in and to understand and connect with this young man, that we were never going to get down to, the real issues that was bringing him in. So I spent pretty close to 2 full sessions learning about LARP, and that's live action role play, because this is what this kid was into. And when I gave him the time and the energy to show that I'm really in in space with him and connected with him, then it made it much easier for me to have some influence. And then, speaking about the third secondary intersubjectivity piece, then we developed complementary intentions, which was basically getting pointed in the same direction. We shared the goals of how to help him in terms of, his relationships, dealing with his sexual identity kinds of issues, etc. So shared goals really make it easier to cooperate, which is really strengthening the whole family system. So I want to show you a delightful video example which shows a father and son engaging together, which illustrates secondary intersubjectivity in action. Don't worry if you can't, hear all the words. Just really focus on the nonverbal connections here. Okay. Um, I love it. It brings a smile to my face watching that video, but it's really, uh, excuse me, underpins, the importance and the value of attunement, joint attention, and awareness and complementary intentions here, which is getting on the same page, getting on the same page. So the interplay of attachment and intersubjectivity in family therapy, I think of attachment and intersubjectivity as really two lenses that really work together. Attachment really keeps us focused on safety and protection, where intersubjectivity is really the how people share their inner experience and make meaning together, moment to moment. So you could say attachment is a protective why, and intersubjectivity is a relational how. When both are in place, families tend to build stronger social and emotional skills, and they get better at understanding themselves and each other. So there's mentalizing that happens here. Oops. Let me get back to here. My apologies. So what does PACE stand for? As I said earlier, PACE is a stance which stands for playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy. It grew out of watching how adults naturally connect with infants. PACE helps create emotional bonds and really supports both attachment and intersubjectivity. Dan Hughes emphasized that PACE is really one of the most effective ways of helping adults communicate with their children and teens, helping them to feel unconditionally loved, which strengthens the sense of safety. So let's look at the P in PACE, which stands for playfulness. It's really adopting a warm, lighthearted approach within family therapy sessions. And I'm talking, both for therapists as well as for the family. This doesn't necessarily mean playing games, although it could. Uh, really means meeting kids with joyful curiosity, meeting the family, holding that space for lightness and which can help to create a positive impact when that shared joyful enjoyment naturally falls. So when playfulness is really truly present, it helps everyone to face those hard things that need to be conquered, to open up, to be dealt with, it makes everyone feel a little bit more at ease if that's in the background, always there. In regards to my being playful, with actually working with younger kiddos, I might start by noticing a scraped knee, boo-boos that they might have, clothing they wear, counting counting their fingers or counting their toes, asking about favorites, or for those of you who know about theraplay activities, which emphasizes structure, engagement, nurturing, or challenge, I will involve them in that process. And this is a simple attachment focused way to build connection. For teens and adults, light conversation about clothing, hair, shoes can help to create comfort and safety. I once worked with a withdrawn foster teen who was under the care of his um, um, father's brother and father's wife. And this boy was on the spectrum, none too happy about being in session. And he showed up with purple streaks in his hair. And as an icebreaker, I playfully, not sarcastically, because that's not playfulness, asked him how I'd look with purple streaks next to my graying hair. His laughter really relaxed him, relaxed all of us actually, and helped him to be present throughout the session. Another important piece to remember about playfulness is that playfulness is a real antidote to shame. And when we talk about, parents later on, um, will incorporate that understanding. We know that laughter activates positive neural pathways that are different from those that are tied to shame. So keeping playfulness in your back pocket is always something that's really supportive for the family in session. So next, let's turn our attention to acceptance. Acceptance at its core really makes a child feel safe and steady. In family therapy, it means making room for a person's inner world, their thoughts, their feelings, wishes, needs, motives, without rushing to judge or to fix. We're accepting the person, not approving the behavior, which eases shame and says, the relationship is more important to me than what you do. And because we're building for connection, that stance creates more mutual influence, meaning when kids feel that they can have an impact upon their parents, it's much easier for parents then to have a much better chance of impacting their kids. It's a kind of inside out understanding and what we mean by intersubjectivity that we just spoke about. Many parents that I've worked with find unconditional acceptance very challenging. I can give you an example. Many years ago, I worked with a preteen who was diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome, um, kidney, kidney difficulties, who had spent about 18 months isolated from usual activities, which included school, friends, sports, all those things that, help a kid to feel normal. During a session, which included the boy, the mother expressed frustration to me by saying, "You mean I have to accept his torturing his little brother?" And I responded to providing context to his behavior that she was talking about. I just recounted his recent history to the mom and explained in a very caring and way that I thought he harbored resentment towards his brother because the brother hadn't experienced the pain of disease, the withdrawing from life that he had. I clarified that acceptance does not extend to making his behavior okay, but it does entail really understanding the underlying thoughts, feelings, beliefs that preceded the actions. Well, it didn't do much to necessarily change mom's perception at that point, but it really helped the boy to feel seen and heard and accepted, which was shown by his tears. Next, moving on, the C stands for curiosity. No matter what your model, curiosity is really essential. It helps you to explore what's happening now and what's starting to emerge. To truly connect, we have to understand people's lived experience. Curiosity really invites their stories, which I'm doing in session, helps me to deepen my insight as well as strengthen the relationship. It's really sort of adopting an I don't know yet stance, wondering without really jumping to conclusions, making gentle suggestions. And if our guest is off, being willing to accept that it's off and to let it go, staying away from our ego that we have insight into a certain situation. When we model this in session, parents often become more mind-mended, and we want them to be mind-minded in terms of developing their own mentalizing and being able to think and to be there for their child. We can help parents look beneath the behavior to what's driving it. When parents lead with their curiosity, the usual angry question, why did you do that, shifts into a question that's more understanding, like, help me to understand what's going on for you and what was happening when you did that. Helping parents to use a light tone and interest and acceptance encourages children to really open up, and that's going to help them succeed where anger fails. Often, I've experienced that clients aren't aware of their roots and their beliefs and actions. So, as a therapist in working with this PACE model, I provide empathetic conjecture that can help to deepen the child's awareness of their motives and support their reflective functioning. In essence, curiosity teaches us to understand before we react to uncomfortable situations. Now, moving on to the E in PACE, E stands for empathy. It's the most effective relational intervention that's available to us as therapists. Empathy enables individuals to express understanding, acceptance, and positive regard in interpersonal interactions. It will communicate support, helping others avoid feelings of isolation. Let them know that they're not alone. Empathy in and out of session fosters acceptance and curiosity and allows clients to receive compassion from another person, which then in turn helps them to feel compassion towards themselves. When clients or individuals receive empathy from a therapist, parent, or supportive adult, they're more likely to develop empathy for themselves. Empathy reassures them that they're not alone when confronting challenges related to trauma or shame. Their pain is acknowledged and their pain is validated. As a therapist, it can really be helpful to share with a client the impact that they're having upon us and what they're experiencing. For example, saying something like, God, when you're sharing that with me, I feel sadness. And if asked by them for clarification, the reply might be, because I really feel bad that you've had to struggle with all of this and struggle alone. With steady support and exploration, people feel their struggles are being held by someone else, which makes it easier to face and make sense of their own emotions. Curiosity guides us with attention to specific areas, while empathy helps to sustain it and deepen it, thereby making tough situations safer to navigate with another person. it's important to remember that it's unreasonable to expect families to share what their most vulnerable experiences are unless they feel that they're really provided with support and empathetic space. Making the space for them offered by PACE, which really helps to recognize, validate, and respond to their need. So, in family therapy, um, in the work that I do, it really begins by establishing a collaborative relationship that builds trust and safety. And for this reason, I start with at least three sessions involving parents before including their child and teen. Sometimes it's difficult. Parents want to, burst right in with, fix my kid. And in terms of um, really developing the relationship and secondary intersubjectivity, it's really essential for me and the parents to feel that we're all tuned in with one another, that we're in from my perspective, that they understand that I'm tuning into their perspectives and connecting attentively with them. This mutual understanding allows me to have a genuine impact and support them nurturing healthy relationships and common goals. It helps parents to especially those that might be considered kind of rigid from their parenting approach, to lighten up, to be more pliable, and be open to exploring some new pathways. The process starts with PACE. Highlighting empathy is really a key element. When a family initially comes in to us, and this is something that's not oftentimes talked about regarding family therapy, uh, parents are coming in because they're carrying feelings of shame, which is not oftentimes named, regarding scaffolding this work. Contrary to opinions of some therapists, professionals alike, most parents deeply value good parenting and they love their kids. It's really central to their DNA, and they truly want to give their children a strong foundation. However, that doesn't mean that they are following the best pathway to achieve their goals. Getting back to this idea of shame with parents. So just imagine, all the interaction that the parent might be having with school staff or relatives, doctors, mental health professionals, other parents, even law enforcement that might suggest that there's something wrong with their child. It adds layers of shame that the parents bring with them into the family therapy. And as a family therapist, we really want to provide a safe zone for them to talk about the shame that's there and in many cases hidden from a lot of people. The initial session will last at least 1.5 hours so that we can begin, so I can begin to gather information about their history, the background of the issues they're facing, as and also a chance and opportunity to really build rapport that's going to help us both be attachment figures for the child. My goal is to really understand the current feelings that are towards their child and always meeting them with a paceful attitude. I use pace and the pace approach with putting special emphasis on really, acceptance and empathy so that parents will feel safe enough to openly share their hopes, their dreams, to when they started to share their doubts about their child. Then I'll inquire about, when their doubts turn to worries, when their worries turn to fear, their fear turn to shame, and oftentimes, which happens with parents because they're experiencing the shame and can't hold it, they begin to express their anger at their child. But by focusing on the acceptance, I really aim to invite all of their feelings, including that shame. And this is introducing them to the PACE attitude and modeling what I want them to demonstrate in session and at home, as well as in the community with their child. The focus of the second session is to examine the parent's attachment history. And this is going to uncover areas of vulnerability and create opportunities for a stronger connection. I'll give you an example of how this was really helpful with this one grandmother that I was working with and her grandson. In going through her attachment history, she shared with me that as a child, she was really shy and reserved, and she lived with a mother who suffered from schizophrenia and really lacked any emotional regulation. Her father, while being well-meaning and kind to her, would escape into his work and as a way of denying his wife's illness, and was mostly unavailable to the family, to she and her two brothers. Consequently, for her, she learned to hide her emotions, oftentimes coping with feelings of anger, behaving oppositional, or withdrawing from others. She revealed to me that with her grandson's behavior, which was oftentimes oppositional, that she became very frustrated and would trigger anger and then withdrawal. By acting this way with her, uh, by acting this way with her grandson, she would in turn deepen his attachment wounds left by his biological parents' abandonment. So over time, working with her and helping her to reflect upon herself, and develop a paceful attitude towards herself, she began to shift in developing a more paceful attitude with her grandson. This helped her to establish, co-regulation with her grandson and strengthen his capacity for self-regulation. At the end of the day, you need a strong, trusting, working relationship with the parents. From the start, help them to feel like you're in this with them, not judging them. Take time to really connect with the parents because kids can tell when their parents don't trust the therapist. If that's in the air, they'll usually hold on to it and they're not going to trust you. So if you hit a big philosophical mismatch in the parent sessions, or you're sensing 1 foot in or 1 foot out, slow things down. Schedule a few more parent meetings and say it out loud so that that's all you need to help you to get in line with them. In pace work, that means naming the differences, staying curious about what's underneath them, and helping the parents show up as steady attachment figures for their child. Now in phase 2, you see there it's involving the child. And I said at least 3 sessions before you would bring in the child. And you might want to ask, why does I start with one child and there may be more that are in the home? In most cases, it works best with working with one child and one parent until you're really seeing meaningful progress, and then add another child. It's tempting to speed up to meet someone else's agenda that really gets in the way. I recommend working with one child at a time and um, and bringing the whole family together at a time in which the work with one child, the first child, is well underway. So family therapies can escalate very fast, as some of you have experienced it. So monitoring the speed, the tempo of the session is really important. The therapist really has to track everyone's signals and step in early to slow things down what Sue Johnson in EFT for couples calls biting the bullet by reframing conversations before they become destructive. We have to make sure that we're really co-regulating everybody in session. Otherwise, the session will devolve into chaos. So, last thing I want to talk about here is repair, and I had mentioned Edtronic. So I want you to think back about that bicycle example, and if the parent isn't there, and how quickly the boy can dysregulate because of these little breaks in connection can happen at any moment in time. In fact, even with parents saying a benign no can help to create a moment of disconnection. So there's connection break, and then following that is repair. And that's what we're looking to make happen. So Edtronic reminds us that what matters is that noticing the ruptures, naming them, and repairing them so that we can keep the bond strong. So, in the case of, a kid falling off the bike and the parent not being there um, immediately to help to support the child, a parent can handle something like that reparatively by saying something that effect, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, and I understand why you're upset with me. Mommy will try really, really hard to be watchful going forward because it's mommy's job to protect you." This is a way of letting the child know that the parent is there and was willing to make amends and really model repair for the child. It's really true as therapists because we have ruptures too. We need to own our own part, remodel, model for these parents' repair, and apologize when it's needed. It's best if we model for all in the relationship that relationship really trumps ego. The message is yes, we may miss each other sometimes, but we can always come back together.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age. Oh. And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her. This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this. And then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions. They turn away. They feel the stress of it. They actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
Okay, so that ends the formal part of my presentation. Um, and maybe what I can do is take some questions now. I hope everybody was able to hear both those videos.
Mervin, I have a question. This is Jonna.
Hi, Jonna.
Hi. Um, where do you know a source where I can read or watch actual family therapy partial sessions or interventions, but
Um,
material from actual sessions?
yeah, yeah. That's a great question, and certainly what we've wrestled with as part of um, uh, DDP worldwide is how we can distribute that kind of information, being seen. So, um, the short answer to that is no, unless you would join into a dyadic developmental psychotherapy training. Um, um, no, no sessions that have been recorded live can really actually be shown via the internet. So there is no possibility in that particular way, but I would suggest picking up uh, the book Attachment Focused Family Therapy. It's a workbook, and there's a lot of examples in that workbook about how to utilize PACE as well as other parts of the methodology for dyadic developmental psychotherapy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mervin, this is Jim.
Hey,
I'm
Jim.
reading in the chat a question from Deborah Shoham. She
Okay.
writes, how do you sell rigid parents on those 3 initial kid-free sessions?
Yeah.
Do you get pushback?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definite pushback. I mean, oftentimes in speaking to a parent on the phone, and I always do that, either speaking to a parent on the phone or Zoom, a 30-minute conversation with them, because I want to make sure that we are in agreement here, or as much as possible, close to an agreement. Um, and I talk to them about, the benefit of meeting together, and some parents may push back with, well, I was told my child only needs, play therapy. And I said, yeah, well, I get that, that there may be, professionals out there that are supporting or purporting that play therapy would be best with your child. And I make it really clear that's not the way that I work. And I give reasons, behind that, that they're with their child 24/7. And it's all very fine if their child would develop an attachment connection with me. But most important, that attachment and the modeling really comes from being in relationship with them. Most parents will either nod their head or say, "Does this make sense to you?" We'll say, "Yeah," and then we start the process. That doesn't mean that when I'm having them in interviewing them in session and such and taking family history that there might be some pushback then. But again, that's all about, just recognizing where they're at, being really empathetic and being curious as well as to what may be challenging them.
Mervin,
Jaylene
you
has
have
a
a
question.
question from Jaylene Jaffe.
Hi, let me take the
Hi.
line down. Hi. So it's kind of a follow-up to that last question. Um, the clientele that I work with mainly are kids who have misophonia, which is an extreme reaction to ordinary sounds. And my first session is always with the parents only. And the hardest part ongoing, and especially in that first session, is how to communicate the sense that yes, in fact, they might have done something that led to part of this problem. We don't know. Yes, in fact, they might. I mean, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. And how to engage them without, guiltifying them because they certainly didn't do anything intentionally to create a problem. But some
Yeah.
of the things that they have done in the way they've interacted with their kids may have had something to do with the problem.
Yeah, quite true. And that's, part of the work and sort of uncovering their shame because oftentimes, parents will come in and say, I love my kids, but I don't like them. And I've been acting in ways that really demonstrate that I don't like them. So developing that attachment relationship and connection with parent helps a parent to come forward and to be able to share where their missteps have been and then to provide the opportunity to help them to open up to some new ways of interacting with their child. And it could be, too, that I'm noticing in the first session that I'm having with they and their child that they're demonstrating exactly what we were talking about, in that session. So then I'll call for the next session to be with parents alone so that we can scaffold it, take it apart, and we can begin to look at it and help them on a much better course. And to tell parents, really, from the point of view, they're really doing the best that they possibly can with the information that they can when they come into you. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. Well, my information is um, somewhere, somewhere in the ethos there. Um, and you can reach me either by, phone or by email through my website as well. And I hope that this was, valuable. Thank you for all of you putting up with my being under the weather and such. And that's my reparation apology to all of you.
Mervin, your contact information slide went out to all the participants, so they do
Okay.
have that. They'll be
Okay.
able to reach you.
All right. Thank you, Marianne.
Thanks for being here when you didn't feel great.
You're
Thank,
welcome.
thank you, Mervin.
Thank you. Thank you.